Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you're watching from, wherever you're listening from on your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, and the others, you know them. You know, time zone. I love to talk about the time zone because what happened is that my guest, I think where I am perhaps some hours ahead. I would have to find out from him. But we are going to be looking at that initially because the time zone is critical. Even one country, the United States, there are several time zones that we have to follow, and that's okay. I We'll be talking about a number of things that you'd want to hear about this afternoon, tonight, whenever, as we have said. Relationships. All of us have relationships, be it platonic relationship, intimate relationship. But my guests believe that relationships are here to teach us something. We can learn from relationships, naturally so. But we're going to hear from him what he thinks, and it's Chris Plourde. We are going to hear from him as I let him into the studio and talk about this difficult game relationship. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hello, doctor. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. We are going to find out how this game plays. If it's a game, you're going to tell us. But before I go into all of that, who is Chris? Talk to me. Who are you?
Gosh. So I am a conscious performance coach. I worked with different individuals, organizations, companies, and we really hit upon how great we can perform in our lives, right? As a company, as an organization, individually, but we look at all areas of our life. We don't just look at one particular area. We look at our spirituality, our health and wellness, our personal relationships, of course, how we deal with finances, and then, of course, professional. So I want to hit upon all of those areas when I'm working with clients, set some clear goals, have them work towards what they want as opposed to what they don't want, and really get them fine-tuned and get into uncomfortable action so that they're able to live not only the lives that they were meant to live, they can be successful, fulfilled, and happy.
Hey, I love that. You know, as you say that, I look back on what we call in psychology. I'm in psychology, positive psychology. So sort of a holistic sort of a perspective of the individual, and that's what you're going to be doing based on the context of what you have just described. But Chris, I love to ask my guest this question. Your childhood.
Just south of Boston, a town called Brockton. I love the town. It was a very blue collar, gritty, athletic town. You know, a lot of good fighters came from there. Very proud city that I grew up in. Okay. But being a sensitive kid, like a really, emotional, sensitive kid, growing up in that type of environment, I thought there was something wrong with me. Yeah. To the point where I was getting psychology, I was seeing a therapist in elementary school. Mm-hmm. And having that, I thought there was something wrong with me. We have emotions, we're able to explore those emotions, feel those emotions, but what's taught in today's society is no, push them down, you suck it up, get yourself together. So that's what I did. I went through my athletic career. I got my business degree, had this idea that if I worked at a great corporation, which I did many times over, then I'd be happy and successful. And, lo and behold, that wasn't the case. And, that's why I pursued coaching. But, I'm happy where I grew up, but I definitely put on a lot of masks and a lot of armor to get through that.
Yeah, I love that. But you're listening to Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast. I'm Dr. Canute White. Chris, you said something that is very, it touches me sort of, because this thing about, hey, man up, would call it. Man up. Yeah. Tough up. Go through it. Boys get that a lot. Get that a lot. Yeah. How do you think, because we're looking at relationships, how do you think boys now connect with relationships, men become men
Right.
and connect with relationships because of that sort of perspective.
Yeah, they don't show, we're taught not to show our true emotions, you know, and what some would call authenticity or vulnerability is shunned upon, right? And if you look at leadership today in the world, it's you see all the wins, but if anybody fails, or falls, then they're berated, they're judged, you know, and that's part of any success is failure, is falling down, but it's the point of getting right back up. So this is the whole point of, I want in my life, and I know people in my community want authentic, real, deep relationships. And in order to get those relationships, we need to share from the depths of our soul, and we need to do that first and foremost. And I think this is what's happening with society today, is that a lot of people have reached a level of success, but there's an unfulfillment because they're not able to really let out what they're feeling and allow that to come to the surface. And when we hold those things in, such as like shame or guilt or something that we've been through, it grows in power and overtakes us. When we're able to let those things out and share them and express them, and coming from an ownership standpoint, not just a victim standpoint, but an ownership standpoint, that's when they start to diminish in power. That's when we start to really see with clarity and live the life we're meant to live.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to move into the alcoholic father situation. But let me say this. I went to all boys school, so to speak. Right. And I look back at it and said to myself, we spend a lot of time in school, in high school, right? And we were not able to interact with females as much as we would want to. Having spent almost half of the day, well, almost all of the day in school, you know, in an all-boys school. How do you think, picking you a bit, that affects persons like me relationship with the opposite sex, right? I think I can say that I believe I've had a good relationship, but I'm just looking at it from a general perspective. How does it affect boys who have gone to all boys school?
Yeah, well, you know, I feel that it's understanding, you know, as men today, you know, it's understanding what feminine is and how to hold space for that, right? Like, there are two different energies that we work with. And if we're always dealing with, say, you know, I look at it in masculine, feminine, not necessarily male, female. But if we're understanding what we hold and how we hold that, right? And if we're taught to treat men a certain way or masculine a certain way, then, you know, when it comes to dealing with the opposite sex or the feminine, well, they're two different energies and two different qualities. So how you may speak to a buddy is not the same way you're going to speak to your spouse, right? Because if you treat that and just the feminine or as the masculine, they're not going to quite understand that. And by the way, the feminine, same way, treating the masculine in a certain way.
In the reverse.
So it's really understanding the integration of it all, right?
Yeah,
so
definitely. Because I was looking at it from the perspective, Chris, of you being at school and you're able to pull a chair out for the female. If it's a co-educated boys and girls, right? You pull a chair out, you will sit and have a meal with a female, and you'd have learned that throughout your time in school. You understand what I'm saying? It's a study that needs to be done, and I'm thinking about doing that study because it's critical. Just saying that.
Well, you're learning chivalry right there. That's chivalry. Now, how to truly hold space for emotion, that takes work and practice. Right. Which is something that I've spent the past 14 years in men's organizations, not only learning for myself, but be able to teach as well. Yeah,
that's critical. All right. Your father, I suspect, was an alcoholic. Am I right? You're right.
Yeah, sure.
So what have you learned from growing up with that sort of environment, you know, father being an alcoholic?
Yeah. So first and foremost, you know, I look at my father now. He's still alive and he still drinks. Right. I look at my father now as this really this soul, like this loving soul. I was never abused or beat or anything by him. The thing that I learned about my dad is him being an only child, having a very traumatized childhood because he lost his mother at a really young age. And then my sister passed when I was 12 and she was 9. So he went through some really tough life situations that no one was ever really there to teach him how to deal with those. Right. When my grandmother died when he was a teenager, my grandfather just kind of like gave him money and let him live his life however he wanted. Bought him a car, did this and that, but nobody ever was there to show him how to really be that father figure, a man. So what I learned throughout the years, and yes, I got upset, Dad, you need to take better care of yourself. You need to, I would meet it with compassion. I would meet it with anger, all sorts. My sister and I both, I have another sister who's still alive.
Right.
And there was a lot of frustration through the years. But what I came to is, he did the best job with the tools that he had, and understanding that he chooses this lifestyle, right? I can put up boundaries such as no, I'm not going to talk to you when you're drinking, and no, you can't, be around the kids when you're drinking, and so on and so forth. But I can love you. I can love you, and I can have compassion for you and what you've been through in your life, right? But I don't have to allow that to affect who I am or bring that into my family if I choose not to. So again, it's meeting it with compassion and understanding. And when I learned that, and when I really saw that, truly saw that for who he was, and realized that it wasn't my fault or anything I did, right? That I chose him to be my father, and I thank him for the gifts and the lessons that he's given me, right? From not only directly, but indirectly. And I literally have thanked him for this. Thank you, Dad, right? For these things. Then I was able to release the triggers and just love him and still love him for who he is right now, even though he chooses the lifestyle he chooses. He will be ready when he's ready, if he ever is ready. That's his prerogative. But I can still show up in my life as the man I am today.
What was the alcoholism, sort of abusive? Is it an abusive sort of response from him?
Was it abuse? No, he was never abusive.
He wasn't abusive. Okay.
He wasn't abusive. No.
Okay. Right.
He was not abusive. He had a very what he did was it was very loving. He buried his emotions is what he did. Right. He didn't understand how to let these things out. And he never, we gave him tools to potentially do that, but he didn't take that option. So it wasn't an abusive, not at all. It was just a very emotionally wasn't there. But that's what I chose. And because he was that, I chose to look at it in a different limelight. I chose to step onto a different stage in my life, and I didn't have to step into that stage.
I have an interesting question, and that relates to men, and since you have gone through that. I've gone through a relationship with my father, who he was an alcoholic as well, so something similar to you. But I decided not to drink. He used rum, white rum, so as you know what we're talking about, right? And I decided I've never used white rum, never drink that. Because of what I saw with my father. So the question is, how that affects you, the alcoholic context of your father affect your drinking, your socializing.
How does it affect? I'm very aware, I do, but I'm very aware of when and how that happens. So I don't drink to numb. I'll drink to have a celebration or have a ritual like thing with my wife. I rarely drink past 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I'm up early in the morning. So if it becomes a thing where, in my life where it's like this power then I'm really looking at that and go, no,
Yeah.
this isn't what I choose, because I want to be as clear and as focused as I can be. As a father of myself of two kids, 16 and 10, a husband of 16 years, 17 years going on. So, there's certain things that I have lined up in my life. And, if that's the dominating factor, I'm just very mindful of it, because my wife's mother, parents were too alcoholics. So we're both looking at it in a very careful way. And we understand that.
Yeah,
So.
and that is important. That is why we're talking about what relationship can teach us, and
That's right.
that roll into the context of the lessons that relationship have. Because
That's it.
Yes, that taught me to keep away from alcohol in an excessive type of way, and
That's right.
it taught you something as well, and that is good. But tell me, the spirituality as it relates to relationships, something I would like to find out about. What is the key to a true spiritual partnership in relationship? Because relationship is about partnership.
Right. So my wife and I first discovered this term, we've been married for a certain amount of years. And then I think about 8-9 years ago, we kind of got to this point where we were learning and doing deep work on ourselves. And we realized that this is more than just a marriage. This is a spiritual partnership. Yeah. And my definition of spiritual partnership is really helping each other's souls grow. Right. So we're holding space for each other's souls to grow. So we're in service of each other, holding each other and allowing that to happen. Right. Giving honest feedback, being truthful with what's coming up in our lives, and being mindful of the context in which we use that as well, making sure that it's not about us projecting onto the other one, but really showing up and being as clear and as truthful as we can. Not burying things for the sake of burying things because it's going to be uncomfortable. We're both all about talking about it when it's there. There's rarely a time would go by 24 hours that if we're holding on to something that we're not discussing it. We're letting it out as soon as it surfaces all the time. And we've always done that in our relationships. And, and it just keeps getting deeper and deeper as we get older and older. So
my listeners, my audience will ask, is it hard to swallow honest feedback?
Is it odd?
Yeah, to swallow.
It can be painful. It can be painful. It can be a jagged little pill. It can hurt. But I think that the hurting sometimes, the hot hand on the stove is what we need to wake us up.
Okay.
But the key is, do you choose to keep your hand on the stove and allow yourself to keep getting burned over and over again? Or do you want to take it off and choose a different direction? Right? So that discomfort and that little bit of pain is an awakening sometimes. And it's something we need to feel. But we don't have to be in that long period if we don't choose to. We can do something about it and change our trajectory unless you're addicted to that and you want to stay in that, which a lot of people are, right? Because the change of getting out of that toxic environment is harder. What are we going to do if I release that energy? What am I going to do if there's a big void there? Because they've been living in it their entire lives. So, as a coach, I get to work with people to help them discover what are we going to replace that with, not just remove it, and then what can we put in its place as we move forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to think, Chris, that when two people come together, they come from different backgrounds, as you know, different personality.
Yeah.
Right. And therefore there's this clash that can happen, right? Because of the differences, individual differences. Yeah. Right. So what you're saying is good, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. But it's not easy. Relationship is hard, Chris.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
So if relationship is that hard, how can we, male and female, right, become quote unquote perfect in our relationship. We talk about spiritual partnership, right? But how can that happen? What type of time frame does it take to make that happen? Talk to me.
All right. So first of all, I want you to remove the word perfect from your vocabulary.
Okay.
Right? because if you were perfect, then you would be lonely because no one would be able to relate to you, right?
Okay.
As my fellow coach Peter Crone says, right? So you want to eliminate that perfect and understand that you're going to make mistakes first and foremost, right? You say it's odd. I agree with you, but that's the whole point, and that's where David Data talks about in his book, Way of the Superior Man, is understanding the feminine and the masculine aspects of what it is, what a relationship is, right? If you're trying to find a relationship with your, let's say, mate that does everything you do, right? And is like, we love this and we love that, and we're the same personalities and this and that. Well, there's no polarity there. And what I mean by polarity is the opposites attract, the attraction, the chemistry, right? So when you meet that person that has maybe you get along with, and maybe has similar interests, but not all interests, right? Maybe one's an introvert and one's an extrovert, like my wife and I, right? She likes playing with plants and all her herbalism stuff, and I like to go out for a 3-hour bike ride or whatever the case may be, right? Those are and then we can come together at the end of the day and talk about these things and these experiences that we had. So she is, I won't call her my best friend, but she's my wife. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think best friends have real similar things that they can get through. Yeah. But you might not be attracted to your best friend, so to speak. Right. Yeah. I'm attracted to her because I allow her to be in her feminine, and I hold space for her to be in her feminine. And I love when she lets herself go and is in that. And at the same time, she allows me to be in my masculine and feel all the feelings I need to feel in that. Right. Yeah. And then we get to talk about it and come together. So I think there's we can dive deeper into that, but that's what it comes down to, is understanding that there's opposites attract, and that's what forms that chemistry and understanding how to play in that world. So.
Yeah. I remember in university, in my master's in psychology, a discussion came up about love decreasing. Love can decrease because you fall in love with an individual because of a personality, looks, whatever, and eventually that decreases. What do you think about that? What are your views and love decreasing?
For me, I can only speak about myself. I've seen a lot of relationships, and I've worked with people that it's gotten better, and then I've seen a lot where it's definitely they've lost communication and they grow apart. So I think there's two marriages in life. One, you can either be married to the same person twice, or you're going to marry a second person twice, right? So that second marriage is your spiritual partnership, so to speak.
Okay.
Now for me, what happened with me is the first phase was me giving her my heart, like feeling that vulnerability and like really sharing how I felt about her and knowing that she could do anything she wanted with it. Yeah. And then as the first 2.5 years of our getting together and dating and living together and so on and so forth, it just it was easy. It was really easy. Like, I loved being around her. She loved being around me. And then when we had our first child, I watched her hold that our baby, our son, and I just fell even more deeply in love with her because I saw the mother come out in her. Definitely. Right. And then we had our daughter 6 years later, and it was like even better. And then I watched her flourish. She's growing in her career, and I watched her courageously, deal with some of the traumas and some of the things that she needed to deal with from childhood and hold that space for when she was ready, and watched her come out and just be this beautiful woman. And I really feel that, the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, I just think it's going to get even better and better. Yeah. That's how it feels right now, because we choose to hold that space and watch each other dive deeper into the centers of our souls. And that's where I think we do. We know it's not about the other person doing it for us. It's about us doing it for us and us doing the work on ourselves first and foremost. And then we get to come together.
And you know, what you have said is very important, because I am thinking that, okay, if there's this one thing that makes the person interested in the other person, I mean, the lady interested in the man or the man interested in the lady, right?
Right.
If that decreases, there's a possibility that you can find something else of interest. So keep growing by looking for something else of interest. You know, find another perspective of the person. I love that.
You're hitting it not right on the head. It's the interest of what sparks you. And that's what I mean about bringing it to life. If you're sitting there and you're codependent on the other person and what they're doing, which I see in a lot of relationships, and you're not doing what you choose to do, then it becomes this thing where it's like, I need to know what's going on with you. And what I mean by work on yourself is not just about healing trauma. It's about looking at what is it that excites you, that brings you joy, right? That what are you passionate about? Follow that. Fill your cup up first, and then you're going to be your best version of yourself. And that person that you're with is going to love you even more, because they're going to see you vibrating at this really high level, right? And then they're going to be compelled to do that.
I have a tip side to that though, Chris. You're listening to Ken Youth Exploration, your topic in the podcast. I'm Dr. Ken Youth White. Chris, is that selfishness?
That's a great question. I believe it's not, if it's done in the right context.
Okay.
Right? It's self-love.
Okay.
Selfishness or self-love. Which do you choose?
Yeah.
Right? Now, granted, having a family, yes, there's certain things you need to look at. And so, you need to pay the bills. You need to, put food on the table, provide shelter, spend quality time with your children, quality time with your spouse. If you're doing all those things, fantastic, right?
Yeah.
But carving time for yourself is vital, because this is one thing I ask all my clients on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
How fulfilled are you in your life? And when I first start working with them, a lot of people, even though they might have reached a level of success, might be at a 4 or 5, right?
Oh.
And if they're at a 4 or 5, I ask, well, how much of your best version of yourself, are you able to give to your kids, to your spouse, to your job, to your career?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, no, you're not being the best version of you. You're not being the most creative. You're not being the most successful. You're not being, because you're selling yourself out and giving to everybody. And then eventually that resentment comes into play. So the question now is, how do we get your cup up to 10?
Yeah.
What do we need to do to bring those things in so that you're operating at a 10 and you can give the best version of you to everything and everyone around you? So I don't think it's selfish. I think it's self-love.
Right. Before I look at the vulnerability of the sexes, I like to call it, and the journey work. Let me ask this. The love language, the love script, it's different, right?
That's right.
Between a man and a woman. But guess what happened? A typical marriage, the husband and the wife have a different expectation, as to what love is and how to express love. So Chris, is it that can be a challenge within relationship? Because hypothetically, I love the lady, right? Is not the way she believes I should say I love her or express my love to her. What's going on there? That can be a challenge.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty, and that's why we grow. Life is challenges, right?
Yeah.
But again, it comes down to communication. You mentioned the love languages, right?
Yeah.
Being able to get curious and ask your spouse, what is your love language?
Okay.
Do you like gifts? Do you like words of affirmation? Do you prefer spending quality time together? Do you like touch? all of those things are vital, and it's our job, our duty as if we're going to talk just men right now, to find that out and realize what is it that really speaks to her, what is it that she loves, right? And talk and ask the question. I don't care if it's those love language or being really specific about, we can get into, what do you prefer, sweetie? Do you want us to spend some quality time? Do you want to go on a date? Do we want to go on a vacation?
Right.
How does that look? Even in the bedroom, by the way, right? Yeah. What is it you like, right? That could be uncomfortable with certain people, but asking the question, what is it you prefer in the bedroom? Right? When we're making love, what is that one thing? Well, slow down a little bit, or this, or I like it when you do this, or kiss my, get specific and uncomfortable around what it is. And by the way, vice versa, this is what I like, right? Come together with that communication. And even though it could be like, well, it's going to be awkward. So what? Life is awkward, get uncomfortable. If if you're burying what your needs are and you're not expressing that, and vice versa, then you're not going to come together in the way that you should come together. But that's what you're talking about. Conversations, uncomfortable conversations is what makes life worth it.
Interesting.
And if we can jump into those,
right?
If we can jump into those, then our needs are going to be met, and we're going to be living a lot clearer and a lot happier, and moving in the direction we want to move in.
I love that, Chris. I love that. This is Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast. I'm Dr. Canute White, sitting here with Chris. But Chris, we're going to vulnerability now. I call it the vulnerability of the sexes. Who is more vulnerable here? The male or the female? What's going on here?
Are you? Who's more vulnerable right now at this moment? If you were to take a lump sum of the 7 billion people on Earth, I think females are more vulnerable right now.
Right.
But having said that, I think men are craving, a majority of men, not all of us, right?
Yeah.
Are craving vulnerability, and they don't know how to ask.
Right.
They don't know how to ask because when we're holding, and I said this earlier, but when we're holding things in and we're trying to be do-it-yourself mother effers, right? Like I was for the longest time.
Yeah.
It becomes this sense of hopelessness. Like I can't do this as much anymore. I'm holding it all for myself, and I'm not able to let out these pure emotions that I need to. Yeah. So and this could be for some women too that are holding it in. Yeah. Vulnerability is a strength. Yeah. Vulnerability takes courage, right? We're always like, man up, you did a great job. You sucked it up and you did awesome. Well, let's talk about what's really going on deep inside there. Yeah. Let's peel back that programming and those layers that you've been putting on for so many years. And let's get to the depth of who you really are. For me, intimacy isn't just about sex. Intimacy is about deep-rooted relationships where you get to talk about what's really going on and what's making you tick, and your dreams and your goals and the things that have held you back, and those things that you have been through in life that you wouldn't wish upon anybody. But you learn some beautiful lessons from those situations and those challenges. Yeah. Your superpowers came from those places, came from those times. Let's talk about those things, right? And then turn it not from a victim standpoint, but from an ownership standpoint. And when we can do that, there's a freedom that lies within that allows those other type of people that are sharing that same type of philosophy to come into your life, because you're modeling that first and foremost.
Yeah.
So
you said something about intimacy is more than sex, and this triangle theory of love, this thing about intimacy, passion, and commitment. When those three are working together, it is said to be a complete love, right? The passion, the sex, the intimacy, the sharing, as you talked about, and the commitment. I will stay with you, lady, no matter what happened. That is critical. But the journey work, Chris. What's that?
Mm-hmm.
Journey work.
Journey work is plant medicine work. And so basically anything from ayahuasca, psilocybin, dozens of other different work. And I truly believe that plants are here with an intelligence to teach us and to allow us to kind of really see who we are and to give us information. And for us, this journey work and this exploration of different types of plants, psychedelics, have allowed us to come together in a deep way that I think is just a beautiful way, a beautiful thing. It's allowed us to see shadows within ourselves that we get to work on, that we get to hold. It's allowed us to see our little boy, my little boy, and her little girl, right? That we get to learn to love, and not just kind of push down and say shush like maybe some adults have. It's got me to really see my dad from a different perspective. And it's work that we do on our own with communities, and it's been kind of invaluable in our lives. Just a really amazing thing. And in the States, and as you, from what you do, a lot of research and studies are coming out right now from John Hopkins and how they're treating PTSD and depression and all of these things. So we founded about 8 years ago, and it becomes a pivotal part of our growth and our connection to not only to ourselves, to each other, and to the people around us and the earth. So
interesting. And I'm happy you talk about plants, because it's really a part of our life, right? And we can relax through gardening, things like that, and have plants around us. If you realize, in my background, a lot of trees.
Beautiful. Great background.
Tell you, right? Chris, your teachers, who are some of your greatest teachers? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. I think it all started in high school with, my graphics teacher, who really believed in me. He was more than just graphics. He was really the one that said, you get to go to college, and I want to help you get there, Mr. Peck. And, he got me into his old alma mater, where I was eventually, got my business degree from. I love, when I first discovered spirituality and what that was, I dove into Joseph Campbell's work, and his philosophy of what spirituality is. I love that aspect of who he is. I love people that like someone like Laird Hamilton, who carves his own path in the world of surfing, right? And he says, I'm going to do it this way. That's the traditional way of doing things, following the circuit. But you know what? I'm going to ride big waves, and I'm going to challenge myself and stay on the edge every single day. And then, we have local, my local friends, David Dressler and Spencer Figueroa, and all these people that have done these built these businesses and have shown up and looked at themselves in deep ways that really just gave me insight to, that's the way it is. I see that person doing that. I'm going to go after that. And maybe I haven't even said anything to them, but they're doing the work on themselves, and it's giving me an opportunity to really look at me and how I'm showing up in the world. So that inspiration is there, coming from their actions and how they do things.
That's great. I love that, Chris. But tell me, freedom. And you said that, and it brings me to freedom, right?
Yeah.
What that
it's
means?
An inside job. It is an inside job,
What that means?
So Peter Crone, I'll mention his name again. He has an amazing quote. I can't take credit for it, but I keep using it because I love it.
Right.
It says, life will present to you the people and the circumstances to show you where you are not free.
Okay.
Right? So when you're looking around and you're feeling triggers, right, from people that show up in your life, well, triggers are an awesome thing, because they show you where you still need to look at things within yourself that you need to look at. So you're looking at all of these people. Why is this person or this type of person relationship keep showing up in my life? Why does this circumstance keep coming into my life over and over again? Do I have the courage to look at that and the emotions that surround it, go into the middle of it, right? Because I truly believe that in the middle of those emotions are where our freedom and happiness lies. But we have to have the courage to go into them and feel them and experience them and say, yes, I want to make a shift. I want to make a change because I believe that I should be up climbing this mountain and not right here in this thing.
Yeah.
We want to accept where we are, but say, what are the things that we need to work on? Because I deserve to be free. And freedom is everything. It's an inside job for sure.
Yeah, but you know, I have clients who will come to me and say, hey, Doc, I keep having the same relationship, intimate relationship, same person, same sort of person, same sort of person over and over again. We call this in psychology repetitive relationship syndrome.
Yes.
You know, the same type of people coming into your life. So is it that my client is experiencing a sense of freedom? They would say, hey, this is awful. This is not freedom.
Yeah. We talked earlier about not wanting to let go of what's familiar, right? So, for example, I had a client a couple weeks ago who is with her husband and they're having some real difficulties and she's getting triggered and angry all the time. Yeah. What we did is we were able to briefly chase it back to when she was 4. And I said, well, what is it about your husband that upsets you? Well, It's about his control. When he says that he's going to do this and he doesn't give me an opportunity to make a decision or to give my opinion, I go, where else in your life has that happened? Mm-hmm. Well, when I was 4, my brothers did the same thing. They would make the decisions for me. I said, well, what did you do? I go, well, I would just freeze up or I would go off and do something else. And I wouldn't do that. So you held that in your entire life. So this patterning of moving through life and then going, oh, that person came back into my life. This person came back into my life. Yeah. And the same situations keep coming in. So when she recognized that was her brother's, that old familiar energy is something she's been holding on to, she was able to look at it and say, oh, do I want to continue with this any longer? Can I shift that energy and move in a different direction and move that into something else? And so that case of finding that relationship or that person is a matter of doing the work, seeing the patterning, and then being able to move it into another direction. Now, is it going to happen just like that? No, of course, you know this with your clients. Right. It's over time, it comes in the spiral, right? But that spiral comes around it again and it gets a little softer and it comes around again and a little softer and softer. And most people think it's going to go away like that. It's not. It's just going to go to a point where it's going to be a little bit of a whisper and it's not going to make those decisions for you any longer. Yeah. Right. So that's what I think it is. It's about showing up for that work and understanding that it's a part of you and loving that regardless. Interesting.
You're a coach, and being a coach, I'd like to find out what sort of philosophy you use in your coaching clients. Mm-hmm. You perhaps have alluded to that before, but be specific as it relates to the philosophy you use.
Yeah, I believe for me, it's all about falling in love with the journey of becoming your greatest self, right? It's not, yes, we want to create goals and destinations, but when we can really look at this exploration of moving through this mountain, of not knowing what is the next door that's going to open or that path that's going to open up, and just trusting that as long as we stay in action, then these beautiful gifts from the universe are going to come in to us for us and present themselves in the just right times in the just right ways. Yeah. But it's all about the falling in love with the journey and understanding that it's not about something trying to hold you down. It's about a challenge that comes to you to make you stronger. And there's always resistance there to teach us, to show us, to help us become the best versions of ourselves. Yeah. I love that. Hey, Chris, I am an education junkie, so to speak, education freak. I'm also a fitness freak. Not much of a fitness freak, but you are in the fitness industry, some fitness thing, and you transition into coaching.
How you do that? What's going on there? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. No, it's funny because, my whole thing was about, it was always under my nose the whole time, the fitness industry and working with people, being an athlete, college football, then becoming an endurance athlete and hitting these different cycling, triathlete, all this stuff, and ultra endurance, mountain biking. And, I was able to take on a certain path my way and understand and create training programs for me. And all of a sudden it was like, hey, can you help me do this or coach this? And so it just was one of those things that I had this belief system of I need to have a degree and I need to work in a corporation. But when I really opened myself up to go, no, there's more here. Then the opportunities came my way and I was able to work for a variety of fitness companies to help to train trainers and certify instructors. But doing that, I got chosen to work at a bunch of different conventions and create my own content. And what the content that I created that I was drawn to was about becoming the best version of yourself, the best instructor, the best trainer, the best teacher that you could. So a lot of that work that I presented throughout the years that I thought was just for the fitness industry actually became more for life. It was told to me dozens of times. And then one time a client said, hey, can you work with my sales team? And I did. And we ended up keeping the same philosophy, the same type of training, the same type of workshops, and then worked with them, mentoring them and getting them on the right path to what they needed to. And we had a 30% increase in sales and the best, sales they've had in 28 years. And I was like, wow, there's something here. It wasn't about just the money. It was about getting them on the right path to to themselves. And then that's when the transition started from fitness into coaching and into personal development and working with people from all walks of life. So that's kind of the brief story.
I love it. So you have the concept in the fitness industry. You have transferred that concept into the coaching industry, right? Yeah, so to speak.
Sure have. My philosophy. My philosophy. It's more than just losing weight. It's more than just crossing a finish line. Right. It's that journey of going through and going, am I really enjoying this, climbing a mountain on my mountain bike, or is this really torturous? Well, if it's torturous, why are we doing it? What are we trying to prove? Because I've seen so many people go through a fitness routine to escape their emotions and feelings, right? Thinking it's about, I can't tell you how many people I'm working with now that were like, I need to lose 15 pounds or I got to change my eating habits. There's so much more. I'm like, okay, tell me more. And then an hour and a half later, it becomes about the relationship with their husband and how they're not happy and they haven't been happy for 10 years. Where originally they just think if I lost 10 pounds, then I would be happy. And that's never the case. There's something
psychosomatic. Yeah, I know, right?
That's right.
That happened. But take for instance, the SWOT analysis, right? I have used that in my sessions. And it's SWOT analysis is a business concept, but it can be used as it relates to SWOT analyzing yourself as an individual, to create strategies in order to. So some of these concepts can be shifted into a different location, to make sense. That's cool. Right. Tell me though, conscious performance coaching. What is that? What's that talking about, Chris?
You're like, I love that because, it's all there, right? We're performing. I want people to perform at the best. I want them to perform the best versions of themselves in all areas of their lives consciously.
Okay.
Right? And I think a lot of people go through, and what I mean by that is listening to that inner voice of what is really driving you. A lot of companies, a lot of people have built successful companies off of the left brain survival way of being, right? I'm gonna hit on the judge is gonna ridicule me and push me and drive me, and I'm gonna hate every step of it, and I'm gonna berate myself the whole step of the way, and then they reach a level of success and say, okay, high five, great, okay, what's next? Right? I see this all the time here in Los Angeles where people make a success, sell a company, and it's like, I'm not satisfied. What's the next thing? Well, I'm not satisfied. Well, you have enough money for you and your kids and your grandkids to live, but you're still not satisfied, right? There's an underlying worthiness thing that's going on here. So my whole thing is, let's pull them to the right brain. Let's bring them into the more compassionate way of being. Let's get them into the more innovative, creative way of being. Let's get them into the more, that place that it's going to be healthier, that studies actually show that not only will you be 30% more successful, if we were relating it to a sales team, live 10 years longer and be exponentially happier, right? If we can bring your place from left brain and burn new neural pathways to your right brain, this is the mental fitness part of what I teach, is getting them to go through that mental fitness programming and training so that they're activating that side of their brain and the gray matter is there the majority of the time, so that we're working towards this beautiful life that we all deserve to live. So,
hey, Chris, I want you to play with this for 2 minutes. Because look, you talk about you want people to be their best, right? Perform their best. Because they're performing. But there's this thing, my primary school back in Jamaica, the motto was only the best is good enough. And a few schools have that going. But the best is not always good enough. What do you think? Because you want us to perform at our best. You'd like people to do that. But is the best always good enough?
Well, it depends on what that is. Like I mentioned earlier, right? If you're always chasing, if you're thinking I'm going after something, but I'm never worthy, right? I'm always crossing the finish line on podium, but I'm still not happy, right? It's your definition of best. It's your definition of success. Right? So when I work with my clients, we get to define what is best for you. What is success for you? Does that align with fulfillment and happiness? Right? Because your version of best isn't necessarily your uncle's version of best or your parents' version of best. And I think that programming and disrupting that programming, if it's not healthy or it's not doing you well, is really important. Right? To living the life that we were meant to live. So,
hey, I love that, Chris. Chris, I ask all of my guests this when I close it. Have you ever been to Jamaica?
I have not.
Why, Chris?
I don't know. There's so many places because I live in Southern California. But
that's all right. That's all right.
No, but it is on my list, and someday I will be there, and I will check it out for sure.
Thank you for that. Hey, Chris, it was nice talking to you. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that my guests, my audience will learn. I've learned a lot from you. It's really a lot of stuff that you have talked about, and it's really good stuff. Right, we love that.
Right, beautiful.
All right, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me on, Doctor. I really appreciate it. It was great to meet you as well.
Yeah, man. Nice meeting you too. All right, goodbye. That was Chris. Plourde. It's really some good concept that he had put forward, and I'd want you to go to his website. It's in the description. Go to the links. Link up Chris, right? Have a discussion with him. If you are a part of corporate America, corporate world, corporate Jamaica, anywhere, right? Talk to Chris and see if you can get him to talk to your workers, to do a presentation, to talk to you as a couple, right? Even though he's not a psychologist, he's a coach that can help you. He's a professional who knows his stuff. And we just want to thank Chris for coming in on Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.